And they all say,
Hey yo, God got me. Long story, small lobby. Broke elevators, but rich, mommy. I told her that while we was cheese liney. No looking back, go get your feet climbing. No quicksand, cause the streets grimy. What better way to start the new year?
Absolutely.
Our first podcast show of the year with none other than our friend. He's a majestic creature to look at, you know. He's kind of like a pet whisperer. You might see him walking around, you know, like Lower East Side with a random snake, a ferret, some animal that's probably not even legal to carry in New York City. But he does it. He likes living life on the edge. He's one of the funniest comedians that I know,
Definitely.
that I've seen, that I enjoy this guy. Is that a good intro so far?
It's great. Inspirational.
I met this guy through you actually some years back, and he's been nothing but a great friend of us. And I'm so proud to bring him here today and have him here today. None other than Sergio Chicon.
There you go.
Yo, hey, that was fucking
good?
awesome, man.
Good? I've been
He
practicing.
said that was,
Yo,
I've been practicing.
I appreciate you, man. That was amazing intro. Yes, it's Sergio Invisalign Chicon, a.k.a. Sergio Puerto Rican Ace Ventura Chicon, Sergio Blizzy Chicon. Don't get it twisted. This little nose used to be very naughty. Yeah, I can't even walk by this fucking basement cellar because every time I see a bit of sheetrock dust falling from the wall, I'm like, yo, is that some Blizzy? I got to take a shit.
If you know, you know.
For real. It's either Blizzy or asbestos.
No,
Either way.
Either way, we're going to die.
Yo, but yeah, so Happy New Year to you fellas. I got to tell you, I'm starting the new year on some dirtbag shit. I got diarrhea. 6 hours in the new year, I have diarrhea.
That's crazy.
I forgot to mention your podcast as part of the intro.
It's all good. DBS podcast,
Yeah. How can
acronym
I
for
forget?
dirtbag shit, acronym for dogs, boxing, snakes, whatever. The Chicon Show.
So-
Been running for 3 years. I have all sorts of dirtbag guests, but I also have comics. I also have fighters. I got people in recovery. I got journalists. It's all that good stuff. It's a nice, unique mix.
Anyone who's available.
Yeah. Even my mom did a cameo on it once or twice.
Like, yo, mom, I ain't got nobody this week. Please.
How the fuck you start the new year with diarrhea instantly?
Yo, dogs, man. I haven't had diarrhea like in 4 years, and it's 2023. I got diarrhea. I have no idea. Maybe I was handling one of my snakes. Maybe I have salmonella, because you know I have all sorts of illegal reptilians. I have all sorts of illegal reptilians in a New York
Maybe
City
one of them,
tenement.
like, spray it in your mouth in the middle of the night or something.
You know, snakes don't spray.
No, but one of your other pets.
Right. No, it was
you only have-
definitely.
But what do you have? I
Okay,
know I see
check it out.
snakes.
Which, by the way, I just want to educate you guys. Snakes don't spray.
Okay.
They'll if they're venomous, they have the ability to shoot venom out their fangs. But what they can do is musk. You know, and
That's the shit that Will used to wear back in like the 80s.
The musk.
Yeah, it looks like this table used to sell that fucking dirtbag cologne on fucking Fulton Street.
The Egyptian musk right here.
Yo, Will
the
definitely
oral.
looks like the type of dude that fucking had Egyptian musk and
Oh, yeah, I wore that shit.
Yeah.
The Armani Aqua,
Cool
the
water.
bullshit. Yeah, the cool water, Armani Aqua, all
And
the
Jupe.
bullshit. Jupe, I wore Jupe.
Yeah.
Hard body.
Come on, man. For $10, you get yourself some juke, some incense, a chew stick.
A chew stick. Yo, you was really about that 90s life, huh?
Yeah, dogs. I want to be God body for years.
For real?
Yeah.
You want to know
In
the
the urban
mathematics?
metropolis, I couldn't identify my Puerto Rican roots immediately. So I took to like Wu-Tang Clan and I started talking like these motherfuckers with the heavy ebonics. Slick Majestic broke mics, I left infected. People were like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Words that really don't go together, but it just sounds good.
Yeah. You know, you gotta love an artist like that who just owns their own terrain. Ghostface, one time he was in an interview and he said, you know, I can name my album Argentina and it'd be fly. It's just the way I say it. I'm like, he's right.
Yeah.
It's all on the delivery, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That could be said the same thing about comedy, right? Because jokes is all about the delivery, most of it. Because
Absolutely.
So you can write for someone else. If they don't know how to deliver it, it's just not gonna.
You gotta own it.
gotta
And
own
I'm
it.
constantly reminded that, you know, by some of my favorites, that if you own the joke, if you believe in it, you can say anything you want.
Right.
It's it's amazing. I was recently at the Cellar and Louis C.K. was on, and he just came out of a scandal. He was canceled, right, for a
Right.
little bit, lost a lot of shit, but he's at this the Cellar downstairs, and he was looking for a word. He was working on some new material, and this audience member helped him with the word. And he was like, "Oh, thank you so much. Now I really want to fuck you." Oh, why would I say that? Why would I?
Yeah.
He said, "Why would I say
He said,
that?"
why would I do that? Given the climate, why would I? He said, miss, I don't know what's come over me. Who's that lady next to you? She said, that's my daughter. He said, I want to fuck her too. Oh my God, what else? Why would I?
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, I want to fuck her in front of you. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yo,
He's a wild
he was
boy.
going in, but yo, killing. What I'm saying is he was fucking killing. Like, he just owned it.
Right.
And his cadence, you know, like the bashfulness behind it, like sold this shit. And now, the thing is, he owns it to the point where he did make it clear. It's like, I'm the last comic. If you want to leave, you can leave. Like, we all have decisions in life.
Yes.
And if you don't like some shit, you don't have to listen to it. You can keep it moving.
Yes.
You know?
It's the same thing about people who go to like the hecklers and stuff like that, or people that get sensitive. Because I was watching recently one of your clips on YouTube, and you was kind of playing around with one of the audience members, and it got to a point where he started getting a little too comfortable, and then you had to remind him, like, don't get it confused. I'll fuck your ass up.
Yeah. So just to give you some context on what happened, I had made a joke about my teeth early in the set, and the crowd was with it. You know, it was like a good, you know, little opening joke or whatever.
Right.
Later in the night, he thought he could take part and alley-oop my shit. He was trying to like do a callback.
Right, be a part of the show. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you know, when he did it, it came across as rude. And I could feel that. You know, you do stand-up, you could feel the sentiment of the room. So people were like, oh, they felt uncomfortable for him, like shouting some whack shit out. So I got in his ass by saying, yo, first of all, get your foot off my stage.
Yes.
And don't get it twisted. I know you see the overbite and the Lululemon shirt, but I'll fuck your ass up. If I would have said I'll fuck your ass up, it would have came out like mad aggressive. But the fact that I said I wear a Lululemon shirt, that softened it up, and the crowd was still on my side.
So you automatically go to that when you, as a comic, you have like you download real quick those little setup to what you already know you're gonna tell this guy.
No,
I'm
not
gonna
really. It just I think it's just fucking stage time.
instinctively, like just from
Yeah.
all the times being on stage
And,
dealing.
you hope that it goes your way. And the fact that I said I'm wearing a Lululemon shirt, don't get
Yeah.
it twisted, that makes it funny. But if I would say I'll fuck your ass up,
Without that, it
yeah,
changes everything. 'Cause
and
now
I've done that shit too. Not like aggressively said I'm gonna sell somebody, but I've gotten mad on stage. There's no doubt. Right?
Right.
It's like, you know, I just wasn't in the mood for that shit. But then you keep it moving quickly.
Yeah.
You know,
Because you could also lose. You could lose.
hell yeah.
Easy.
And that's the
Oh,
thing
wow.
that people don't realize. Like as a comic, you got to think in real time. Like you got to be able to. Once you get to the level of where you guys are at, that you've been in the game a long time, you deal with. You got to go back to those experiences. Like, all right, I need to handle this now, quick, and you know what I mean. Before, and how do I keep the show going too?
Yeah, and it's also like you can't take yourself too seriously. You got to remain playful and energetic with it. But, you know, I am a person who has my own day and my own shit going on. Sometimes that's applied on stage without realizing it. You could, you know, be less patient with some people. And he wasn't that bad. It was a quick little boom, boom, you
Right.
know. But there's some people who are just fucking annoying. But it's a rare occurrence.
There's those people that say, I want to be a comedian one day. And they take that moment to shoot their shot, to get that one laugh that they always wanted to get for other people.
Yeah.
And they just lose. Especially to a professional like Serge. You're gonna lose. You're gonna always lose. And he probably felt like shit.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I that's never the intention to make them, you know, like feel like shit. You want to make it as fun. Actually, it is my intention. What I'm talking
I was
about.
just about to say, no, you
Yeah,
want
it
to make
is
them
my
feel like shit.
intention, but I also don't want them to be like mad at the rest of the show. That's why it's like funny for everybody, even though he's the butt of the joke. But you know, he realized that he set himself up.
And do you think like you have a short temper in general? Like because before, how did you get into comedy? Because I watching you on podcasts and stuff like that, I hear people talking about like, yo, like Serge, he's really like a hothead at times.
No. These are, do you know what it is? These are guys. They're unlike us. And what I mean by that, they're some of my white friends who grew up in different areas. We're Bordies from Brooklyn, from the Lower East Side. So stories I share are normal to
right,
us.
right.
And I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a hothead. I just been in situations where I used bodily harm on some individuals.
Right.
No, but
it's also
but I'm not a hothead. I'm definitely not a hothead.
Well, that's all I was saying. What the fuck they get
Yeah,
Serge
yeah.
being a
I don't know
hothead?
because I've watched. You know, you go. All right, let me just see how Serge is doing in other
Right.
interviews.
Now, I actually have a very gay and jolly disposition. I moved down the street like, la, la.
Yeah, no. I was like, nah, he's But it's like what you said. They're not used to our culture. So when we express it, well, that's great that he's being himself in front of whoever. And they don't like that. And not that they don't like it.
No, they don't like it. They're just kind of fascinated by
Right,
it. They're
right.
like, oh my God, you actually, robbed a drug dealer before? And I was like, I was under the influence, and so was he. But I fist robbed him.
But even in the hood, that's not really regular shit.
I know, but it's some shit that you've heard before.
Yeah, it's not.
Definitely.
It's not unusual at all. It's not unusual at all.
And it was a one-time occurrence, but the story is shared a lot because it's so fascinating to people. But, we were both under the influence, and the guy was hitting on my friend's girl. And then he goes to her. He said, your friend thinks he's hot shit. And he says, you think you're hot shit too. Here, take some more blow. I'm like, what are you doing? He puts on a toilet seat. He says, why don't you sniff that up, you piece of shit? Yeah, and I was high. So I took his drugs. I took his drugs and I gave him a couple of, da, da, da.
Yeah.
But he handled it like a champ. I can't believe I'm sharing this. But,
He said,
You
yeah,
still
like
see
I
him in the
said.
neighborhood?
what was that?
You still see him in the neighborhood?
No, I think I saw him, like 5 years later, and he was like, yo, I got some blow? And I was like, nah, I don't do that shit. And he was looking at me like, you look mad familiar. I was like, yeah.
But so let's go back. How did you get into comedy? When did you get into comedy?
Rest in peace to Caroline's Comedy Club. I
Right.
took a comedy class.
Dope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just needed a frame because I
Right.
didn't know. First of all, just to give you a quick backstory, I was scared to death doing comedy for years. Like it was one of these things that I entertained, and typical class clown shit. I was always like the life of the party amongst my friends, and I was funny, but I was scared to do that shit. And I remember I came across the Boston Comedy Club.
Yes, I
and
used to go there on Sundays.
yo, dog,
When
Sundays.
Talent and Will used to host that
Yes.
shit
So-
every Sunday.
So guys like the likes of Patrice O'Neal,
Yeah.
DC Benny, rest in peace, Angelo Lasada. He was a New York staple, Bronx native, Boricua. So I looked up to him to see a Puerto Rican on stage like that, ripping. Greer Barnes, Will Sylvans, Talent. And I was like, yo, these guys are cut from like our cloth. Like I can relate to these guys. Like it seems like our story.
Yeah.
So I was super inspired by them. Patrice O'Neal one time was in front of the club, and I was fucking cracking up because he was talking to another comic, and he says, you a vegetarian? How you fat and you a vegetarian? Were you eating bushes? And I was like, this motherfucker's hilarious. So
Yeah.
he was one of these standout comics. I remember going on Sunday nights with my little girlfriends and shit with the free passes, and he had a room of like 8 audience members, and this motherfucking dude dug himself in such a hole. He was like, what's wrong with y'all? Some of the audience members, me and 7 others. What's wrong with y'all? Y'all come here on a Sunday night to be entertained by random strangers. Y'all pathetic. Yo, he's like dissing us, and I'm laughing. Like I'm shoulder laughing, like Saul Guru. I'm like this. I'm like, and he says, y'all pieces of shit. Like you think we're gonna entertain y'all? How about if I just sit here for 10 minutes? Y'all don't deserve, And like
Savage.
savage. And then he turned the room around, and he had us cracking up to the point where it was like I knew this motherfucker for years. He was just really, really good at what he did. There was this level of not giving a fuck, but he believed in any situation he could turn it around. And
Yeah.
so I thought that was like. That's some shit that happened over 15, maybe 20 years ago, and I still remember it to this day like it was like yesterday.
Now,
that's
is
why
that
he
a-
was a comics comic.
Yeah.
Patrice O'Neal was a
Yeah.
comics. All the a lot of people when he passed, they was like, well, but what's so special about
Nah,
him?
he
Only the
was-
comics
yeah.
really knew how special that dude was. And he was, listen, I'm going to say what it is. He was a special asshole, meaning that like he used to fuck with people. Like he used to make you really hurt your feelings. Really hurt.
He would roast the shot of
Yeah,
people.
He'll let you know right away everything that's wrong with you.
Yeah, everything from the giddy up.
Now, is that something you think that you're born with, or can you develop that? Is
But like that sort of
that level of what Patrice had?
I don't know. He was a natural born
yeah,
killer.
I think he was natural. I think he's
Yeah.
natural. But
Yeah.
the thing that made him special, not only was he just like, he was a naturally curious person and a very smart person.
Yes, he was.
And then you intertwined that with someone who actually had jokes. Some people are just naturally funny and just like say whatever they want. Like I think like a Charlie Murphy is a naturally funny dude, but he didn't have jokes per se. He like told stories.
His personality.
Right.
Right. Now, a guy like Patrice, which is like very, you don't see it in the urban circuit as much with Black and Latino comedy. He had actual jokes and interesting, unique perspective on
Yeah.
shit that was taboo.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
he was saying some shit that was like, yo. But it was
Yeah.
like, damn, I don't agree with you, but that's really interesting.
And funny.
And funny. You know,
Because it also made you think, right?
right? It was thought provoking. So he challenged like the status quo in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I still listen to a lot of the Opie and Anthony stuff when he used to be on it and talking about his, like you said, his perspective on things and stuff like that. He definitely smart, man, just smart, great, talented dude.
Yeah, so you know, guys like that, super inspirational. And then I started a comedy class at Caroline's, and then I just took off from there. And I met I met people at in the Laugh Lounge, which is run, you know, by Delilah, and they took me under their wing, and then I just started working the clubs and shit. But I gotta say, and I gotta share, the only reason why I think I did stand up is 6 months before I started stand up, I was at a place in my life where I wasn't very happy with my job, and I was laying on some hardwood floor, not paying attention, not even at an actual job site, in my apartment, and I cut my finger on a table saw.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
like I cut.
Oh, that's
Yeah, I talk about it on stage. I don't really do that joke that much, but I cut my finger on stage, and yo, that shit was mentally. Like, yo, I was in pain both emotionally and physically. Like, I lost a lot of my finger. They removed bone from my wrist, reattached my finger. And it was the last piece of wood. And it had a knot in it. There was 4 inches left. And I had a table saw on a brand new slippery oak floor. And it hit a knot in the wood. The table saw jumps up, grabs my finger, and there's blood all over the ceiling. I'm like, oh, shit. I grab a towel, and I just knew it was a mess. I could see the tendons. Yeah, it was awful. And the recovery was even worse because I didn't know if I was going to lose my finger. I didn't know if I was going to be able to, like, box or do. I didn't know how my life was going to change. But while I was in the hospital for, like, 2 days, I was reading a book by Frida Kahlo. It was a biography. You know, everyone knows Frida Kahlo. She's a Mexican painter. And I was at the part of her story where she was involved in a trolley accident, and she was impaled by the railing. And she then tapped into her artistic expression. She always wanted to be a painter, but she never was courageous enough to do it until she was like her all-time low. And then she became a painter who really showcased who she was and the misery and love that she had for her husband, Diego. What I'm saying is that shit right there was like, oh, if I could deal with this mental and physical torment, I could deal with being humiliated on stage if it doesn't go my way. The one thing I have to do is try.
right.
And I fucking tried 15 years ago, 16 years ago, and a hobby turned into a fucking living. So, you know, pulled the trigger on that shit, and it worked out. And it's working out, you know?
It's like the gift and the curse, right? That situation that happened.
Right. Well, that's why, you know, there's an ideology I have that anytime I'm faced with some adversity, I always keep that in my pocket. Like, yo, you always need to deal with some fucking hardships in order to appreciate the other side, or that's giving you strength to move forward. You know, it really is. Like,
Right.
you know, nothing happens without a little bit of that struggle and adversity. There's nothing in life. It's also that even if it doesn't, whatever work you put into it can be applied in other areas of your life. Like everyone, a lot of times we have this end result in our mind, and a lot of times it's not that. So, for example, let's say it, you know, stand up. If I had a goal that wasn't ever met, I've exercised the ability to do public speaking, and with that could be transferred, and you know, other areas of my life. You always gotta look at life like that. I feel,
Right.
in
No,
order
yeah,
to
you're
be,
right.
so it could be fruitful. You know,
Right.
because we become so tunnel vision and obsessed with ourselves. That's like, no, look at like what's going on and how it could benefit you in other ways.
If you're not subscribed already, press that red button. It'll cost you no money. You ain't even gotta give me no weed. This is the Brooklyn Basement Podcast where we talk real shit. And when you press subscribe, it helps us in the YouTube algorithm so you can see us more often. So press that red button because we need you to do that shit. Like right now. Please.
So at this stage of the game, you started doing the podcasting, you traveling, you was just in Vegas, right?
Yeah, so you know, listen, it's crazy because I never, it's funny how I kind of started the podcast talking about, you know, he was like, you have a bad temper, and it's funny because there are a collection of stories on other podcasts that, you know, shared about, you know, street altercations, but it really doesn't define me. It's just fun to talk about because fight stories are always fun, right?
Right.
But
Well, when you're winning the fights.
Yeah. Or like, you know, but getting your ass kicked is fun too. It's it could be fun to talk about.
So you're gonna have to give us a getting your ass kicked story, since every other story's probably been.
Yeah, I mean,
Have you?
I was jumped on 8th Street in Tompkins Square Park at 5:00 in the morning on February of 1996. I had a Tupac shirt on, and I was playing Tupac on. I thought I was Tupac. And I had a fucking do-rag on, and these motherfuckers, it was me and 2 other dudes, and we just got into a rumble like at 5:30 in the morning. It was me and 3 others, who 2 of them ran. So it was me and my boy Mex, and the fucking dude who he was fighting with backs up and whistles. Yo, and all I saw out of Tompkins Square Park was motherfuckers jumping over the fence. Yeah, I don't even think they were involved. I don't think they knew. I just thought, no, some motherfuckers getting kicked, and I was that motherfucking getting kicked. And I got my ass kicked. I used to carry a dog leash with me with a nylon handle and a lock, and I was swinging that shit, connecting on people's hands. I don't know who I was hitting, but I held on that shit for dear life, and they were trying to pull it from me while I was in the fetal position with one arm stretched out, and they were kicking me in my face. Whoa. Yeah, and they kicked me in my nuts from behind. How? Yeah.
From behind.
He didn't even tuck him in right.
Yeah,
they was out there. Oof.
Yeah, so that was an ass whooping. But, getting kicked from your nuts and your nuts from behind, it's visually, it's absurd, but it's kind of funny too. Like, it's hurtful.
So they was really aiming for the. They wanted to get in there.
He was probably trying to kick me in my asshole.
Right.
That's what he kicked me in my nuts.
He was aiming. They was aiming for something in there. And they caught connect.
Yeah, I had a Nike check out of my fucking nuts. My God. I realized after that beating, that's not what I want to be. And I don't want to be involved in shit like that. So I lost some friends and I moved on with better decisions in my life.
Yeah.
Did you stop becoming a Tupac fan after that or not?
I still love Pac.
Okay. Fuck a Pac. Fuck Pac.
But yeah, you learn a lot about yourself from shit like that,
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. And Washington Square Park is...
No, Tompkins Square Park.
Oh, Tompkins. Okay.
Yeah.
Tompkins is the 14th Street one, right? Tompkins.
It's on 8th Street. It stretches from 7th Street to 10th Street.
Got you.
It's a dirtbag park.
Yeah.
It's a you go in the bathroom at Tompkins Square Park, you come out of that shit a dope head. You're like, I didn't even do anything. You just come out of that talking different.
Yeah. I didn't even
Yo, what's wrong? What's the fuck wrong?
You come back with all your personal belongings in a plastic bag, riding a city bike, knowing damn well you don't have an active bank account.
What's wrong? What's wrong?
For real. It's a dirtbag park.
How's your diarrhea holding up? It's good?
The diarrhea is subsiding. I shat in Will's apartment, in his first floor apartment, and I was like, you know what? He doesn't have any water for me, so I'm gonna leave the sprinkles of brown sugar all over the place.
As a kind of like a reminder.
Yeah, I looked at it, put my belt buckle on. I said, he better go handle that.
He gonna have you with that toilet bowl cleaner like this later. Aw. Serge.
We'll try to treat you like a thotty. He was like, "You want to see my apartment?" It's not even it's just the way he said it. I was like, "No, I don't know about that."
No, but I mean, me and Serge go back at least 20 years, right?
We go back a long time, and Will has always been one of my favorite people. We hung out hard. We've done a number of shows together.
I can't even imagine you two fucking maniacs together.
Well, I'll say this for myself. We were just talking behind the scenes, and I just want to be. I'm very open about this shit, but we talk about like. My struggles or whatever, and there's like a collection of different things that we already touched on. But I did a show with him in Rochester, and I was clean. I'm sober now, so just for a disclaimer, I'm sober now. I don't drink or party or anything. But we did a gig in Rochester, and he had no idea that I was sober for like 2 months, and I had a relapse there. Ooh. Yeah, so it was like watching Denzel in that movie Flight.
Yeah.
So I was in a green room. In this theater, and it was like a school theater.
Yeah.
And we had a predominantly strong Puerto Rican audience of like 400, and they were live. We were all ripping. We all had good sets. And I went downstairs, and I was just, enjoying the endorphins of performing for 20, 30 minutes. And I was in a kid's playroom that was used as a green room. So I'm sitting on like a wood rocking chair the shape of a horse. And there was a refrigerator. And I opened the refrigerator, and there was mad Heinekens in there. And I popped them shits up, and I was like, I shouldn't be doing it, but I had 6 of them. Bah, bah, bah.
You went from 0 to 60 quick.
Yeah, and I went in, and Will had no idea. Like, I was hiding that shit well, but then I needed to get back in the game, and what that means was I am like a blowhound. I know how to find drugs anywhere I go. So I found a girl with a tattooed teardrop in the audience.
She's got it.
Yeah, and this is a turning point, right? So here I am, co-headlining a show with my boys, and I relapsed. My daughter was just born like a few months ago, and I meet this girl. She has a tattooed teardrop. She makes a call for me, and the dude pulls up, the drug dealer, and I'm like, yo, you're whatever his name was. And I look in the passenger seat, and he had a kid with him.
Wow.
And that was like a turning point. And the kid knew.
But you also knew the drugs were gonna be whatever you was getting was gonna be good because anybody that committed to delivering some shit,
Right. And they were good.
yeah, like,
I ain't never got high like that again. I want to see what the fucking guy from Rochester again. Yo, but that was a turning point, dogs. Like I was like, this the motherfucker I want to be? No. So it took like that visual and, to really inspire me to like lead a different life, So like that was hard to do, right? Like, to deal with. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be that motherfucker buying drugs in front of kids,
right.
But now it's funny because, like he said, we talked about it upstairs. And I was telling Sergio, we were talking about, remember that? And you were in the middle of the street. Now it makes sense of why. Like this nigga in the middle of the street, in the middle of Rochester, New York. Rochester is dangerous. They're one of the highest murder rates in the country. Is Rochester. Here he is in the middle of the street. Didn't know what he was doing, just out there. Like yo, Sergio, where you go?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. When that's how I knew it was a problem. I would just do it, right? I would be in a hood somewhere.
Not even thinking.
Yeah, right. And, so that was a turning point. And listen, that was my daughter inspired that because I saw that kid like at 11, 10 years old. And when my daughter was born, I was like, do I want that? Being hungover, looking at her in the crib. I was like, I got to make a decision. And when I made that decision, dogs, everything in my life became so much better.
Wow.
But it required an enormous amount of work. Like it wasn't easy.
Right.
That shit wasn't like, oh, I had a kid. I just don't want to do this anymore. I had to do like outpatient program. I had to cut friends off. But everything in my life that I was decent at, I became real good at. So it was like everything propped up like significantly. And I started adding up the hours of like, what I do, how many hours of hanging out. I added them shits up. That's how diligent I became. And it was a total of 30 hours of hanging out and then recovery. Right. And it became 50 hours of my week committed to recreational partying. And I was like, 50 hours, I could write material, I could work out, I could be so much more of
But do you feel like the being high and stuff like that contributed to the material as far as comedian?
Yeah, but we have to be careful. That's a great question because I think what happens with comics, musicians alike, they are fueled by this. You think about early Wayne, 2009, when he was like, real G's move in silence like lasagna. Like he was saying that shit and he was on that syrup hard. I think he always had the potential, but what happens with artists, a lot of artists are very sensitive about their work and they have a lot of inhibitions. You just gotta fucking pull the trigger on it and be okay with failure. Just over and over.
Because maybe the drugs kind of just let you not focus on.
They lower your inhibitions, right? So it's like from here to there, bam. But it's not sustainable. That's the trade-off. It's not sustainable. You're gonna crash and burn, and that's inevitable. That's inevitable. Right. Like it doesn't. And you look at the dopest comics now. A lot of them are sober, or they just don't drink. Or you think about Louis C.K. He don't drink. Or Bill Burr. Like a lot of these guys go up and they got water. Like they're
But does it help that those guys already been in the game a long time, so they kind of know the structure of what things need to, versus a new guy coming in? He's overthinking everything. He's trying to be the best.
Yeah, but I think you just gotta deal with that shit and embrace it, or not give too much attention to like lowering your inhibitions with substance because it just doesn't work. It may take the edge off, and listen, I'm talking about guys like me, not a motherfucker like Will who can have a drink and be good. I'm talking about motherfuckers like me. You know what I'm saying? Like with the guys who can have a drink. Right. With control.
Some people need to have a Heineken. Talent always goes up on stage with a Heineken. That's his MO. That's his thing. He takes a shot. That's his ritual. You know what I mean? He takes a shot, gets on stage with
But
the
he can probably control it. It's just the point
it.
of like, I guess, Sergio saying is where you just doing it and it's nonstop the
whole
night.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that shit is like.
And we used to get crazy. Sergio, I've been in places I've never seen before with Sergio.
So do you feel, since you've been sober, your stand-up, do you feel it's it's easier now compared to when you was.
Yo,
high?
that's a good question because what happened was the first year I didn't even know if I could do stand up anymore because it tightened me up so
Right.
much. Yo, dogs, I remember my first weekend I was with my boy Giannis and he was doing this character that was based out of Lower East Side, Marisa, which is very
Right.
popular in New York and Miami, Chicago, and that shit was taking the city by storm. Sold out shows. I was newly sober and I felt mad tight. I didn't want to interact with people. I didn't want to. My sets were mad rigid. I wasn't having fun.
Right.
But I was uncovering a new me that
Right.
wasn't
You had to figure out how to.
move again, and that shit goes away. But I had to deal with that discomfort in order to reach the place I'm at now. It wasn't gonna be given to me like, oh, here's a treat for you. You don't drink anymore. Here, everything's gonna be fine and that. And I had to work through that shit, and that shit was like a year.
So do you feel that at this point now, your level of comedy, as far as being on stage, is the same as when you was? Now I know that you went through that hump, but now do you feel? Is there any difference between?
That's a tricky question because I have so many more years in the game, so my confidence is different. But I have to say, my enthusiasm when I was is wavered. But I think that's a difference. It's a collection. It's two parts. It's the fact I've been doing it a long time, but also I think I've been doing it a longer time, but also everything is more manageable now. Like if something doesn't go my way because I'm in the right state of mind, I can handle it. As when I was drinking or I had.
Like the guy with the foot on the stage.
Basically, to make this simple, when I was drinking, there was compounded issues that weren't being addressed. So everything was being affected by that. And it was my stand-up. Like, listen, I might have a set that was like, yo, that was phenomenal because it was from head to mouthpiece to the audience. And they were like, yo, that's like my motherfucking man in the back of the school bus talking shit.
Yeah.
But that was a good set. But the trade-off for that was I was waking up late. I wasn't going to make my spot the next day. So this is a more consistent, slower pace, but not as explosive all the time, or it doesn't feel like a celebration each and every time. It feels like work, but it's more consistent.
With becoming sober, have you also been seeing therapy, getting therapy, or anything
All
like that?
Yep.
Yeah.
When I got sober, I went through an outpatient program, and that shit right there was so out of my comfort zone. And like, let me tell you, you want to talk about being humbled? I was with motherfuckers who I was like, oh, I'm not that dude. But everyone's rock bottom is different, and that's the thing. Like, it's so taboo where we come from to be a person addicted to drugs, but we know those people. They're part of our family. Like we know that, and we dismiss them, and we but these are beautiful people, and I have empathy for that. Think of some of our favorite artists who we lost recently. They're beautiful people, immensely talented. Guy like DMX, that motherfucker spoke to us, like, and he was sick for years, and he didn't, he succumbed to it, but I knew I had to do everything in my power because, even though I want to keep this light and funny, just the way I'm feeling right now, there's no doubt in my mind that we never totally got it figured out. You never got it totally. And I get goosebumps saying that because what happens is the moment you think you got it figured out and you're fucking on a different plane, you play yourself. And that shit, that addiction is always sitting on my shoulder. That shit's always there. So I got to, two things. Yeah, I got to watch it. It could be working with my boy Chris where he sells out a 3,500 seater and I'm part of this thing where I'm like, oh my God, and these people know me from the podcasts I've done, and it's a beautiful time. I can use that as a reason. I can have a drink and I'm celebrating, and that could change the whole,
just like that.
It could change, the whole, it could change just the whole flow of things. Or I could use, I'm having a bad day. Like I can't, I'm fighting my wife, and I never take any of those things to the extreme. I'm like, everything is manageable. That's all part of life. So what I'm saying is like, it just feels a lot more manageable without that shit. You know what I'm saying?
When you get to that point like that, when I'm sure you get to the point where it crosses your mind, right? How do you change that thought process or pattern at that moment to just?
I put in place so many things that make me feel good. That there's a good force field around me. And as I do a bunch of shit I don't want to do, that makes me feel alive. And that's running, that's boxing, that's waking up early and stretching, that's journaling. I put in place so many different things that instill confidence and enthusiasm for living that those outside substances hold no weight. But even with all that shit I got, it could be a
Still
challenge.
waiting around the corner for you, like, yo.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
You need me though. I'm right here.
And it could be very primitive things that will ignite that. And it could be anything from sex to, because, listen, things require work in order to last longer. That, a cheap fix is short. You know what I'm saying? So it's a level of discipline that I reach that I do a bunch of shit that at one point I didn't want to do, but that is part of my life. And that's how I stay afloat, And things happen or seem a lot slower, but things are a lot more fulfilling now. I'm way more present. Every day feels like, I like this shit.
The satisfaction that you get from it lasts longer when you versus like the high is just however long that high may have.
Absolutely.
And then it's over. The next day you're like, oh my God, I gotta.
And that's the way it is with stand up too. That shit is a high. But I take a good show with a grain of salt. I take a bad show with a grain of salt. I used to have a bad set when I was younger and then drink myself to oblivion. You know what I'm saying? Or a great show and drink myself to oblivion.
Either way.
Yeah. Now it's like nothing is that serious. Nothing deserves that much power over you. And like, yo, dogs, in this life, we're so scared of loss that we'll do anything to gain. And let me tell you something. One thing that's fucking the biggest fact is that we're all gonna be gone one day, and we're scared. A lot of us are scared of that. It's like, but as an analogy to life, we shouldn't be. We should actually earn that right. That's a right to live your life to the fullest ability, and then earn that at the end. But we've been conditioned to be like, fearful of that. No, that's everyone gets that, right. And we should earn to die. But living fruitfully and like being present. There's so much beautiful shit out there that's for free. It's free. Mm-hmm. But we think it's this because, there's just a lot of distractions out there.
That's what it is. The devil's out there.
Yeah. We got to be. It's so many different forms. And this is a whole, but like social media and everything, But the things that you're attracted to, but what really makes you, there's a thing, you could be attracted to something, but what things make you really feel fulfilled? For some people, that shit just a nice run. Mm-hmm. Or for like a guy like Will playing basketball, that makes you feel, you're using your body. Right. We're meant to move, right? You're using your body. It's competitive, Everyone has that something, and we should exercise that. And I don't mean that in a physical way, just like, do it.
That's dope. So now you got into the podcasting thing. You've been doing that as well.
You know what? It's funny. We were talking a little bit about this earlier. Podcasting, for me, has been such a long, hard road. It's been fun, but it's not popping the way I would love for it to be. Once again, I had a result in my mind. 1 year, I want this. And I haven't received any remnants of that. But what I've gained from it is that I'm interacting with people who I find super interesting. I've become a way better listener. Yeah. And I've learned a lot about myself.
Yo, Pun, I did it, yo. And they all say, hey, yo, God got me. Long story, small lobby. Broke elevators, but rich, mommy. I told her that while we was cheese liney. No looking back, go get your feet climby. No quicksand, cause the streets grimy. We thought the world was ending many times, to speak kindly. They said that's why every cousin slept by me, but never had the dream to go get jet probably. Cause I was the only one that woke up in the sweat, ready Audi. I just got here, but I'm next in line. My name went from loose leaves to movies with crossing eye. Skip, I never lost the rhyme. Cause when you out here spitting facts and raps, you're blackened over time. They build the war for Latins, that's no borderline. 1 J-Lo, 2 million Puerto Rocks, you saw the line.